You know, it's been funny in this season, hasn't it, of the pandemic, where there's been so much conversation about health. And importantly, it's good to talk about health. And I love seeing in our culture even that we've made so many shifts to talking about emotional health, mental health, relational health. There's so many aspects of health that we are talking a lot about right now, just kind of in society, which is kind of a good thing, I think. But I think this is really interesting for me that there is one sort of health that you will never hear anyone talk about in popular culture. You'll never hear the government stand up and start to talk about this type of health, and that's spiritual health. It's not like at any point in the pandemic, someone stood on a stage, they said, guys, we need to begin praying and fasting. Hey, we need to cry out to God right now. We need to strengthen our devotional rhythms. Let's stay spiritually strong. It's just language that doesn't exist in our post-Christian Western world. And so I figure in the church, while we need to make sure we have this emphasis, because what I love about Jesus here is he doesn't really make any distinction when he talks about rest. He doesn't say, hey, come to me and you're going to experience, mental peace. He doesn't say, hey, come to me and you'll have emotional well-being. He says, come to me and I will give you rest. He also doesn't say, hey, come to me and I'll give you just a spiritual rest. He just lets it be general. He lets it be all-encompassing of every single area of your life. And yet, isn't it funny how we quite often, when we read the Bible through the lens of our culture, which is a bad thing to do, but we all do it from time to time, you can feel like the promises of Jesus is like, yes, but. So it's like, yeah, Jesus can give me rest, but there's all of these things happening in my mental health. And there's all of these things over here in my job, my workplace. So that's not going to fit with Jesus. But we need to understand that following Jesus is not an additional extra that we fit into the rest of the parts of our life. It is the lens and the framework, and the yoke is the word that's used here, which I'll talk about in a moment, that actually defines every other part of our life. In other words, we're going to find that if we get this right, if we get our relationship with God right, and we, as Jesus says, come to me, that invitation, all who are laboring and are heavy laden, we're actually going to find that the spiritual health is going to leak into and affect every other part of our lives. And this can be tricky for us to understand because we've seen people who we thought were spiritually strong and yet maybe were emotionally weak. Or we've seen people who look like they're all full of the Word of God and all this stuff, and yet mentally they're really struggling. But what I simply want to say is that a relationship with Jesus, no matter what we've seen around us, everything flows from spiritual health, from a spiritual relationship with Christ. And therefore, we're not diminishing the importance of emotional health, mental health, physical health, and so on. We're actually just simply saying, no, these things are really important, but they flow from a relationship with Jesus.